Hello there, my name's Mac and welcome to this video on some unusual things that we've seen here in Northern Ireland. Now, needless to say, the internet is full of fake news, fake pictures, fake information and other stuff, and it can make it really difficult to kind of pick out the truth from what is fake. And there's so much out there which is fake. Now, I've included a few pictures here which look quite interesting. Some of them look almost quite amusing, but you could see how somebody could actually use them to create quite a convincing fake. So I've taken some photographs and some recordings of some of these. Then there's one instance here of something which was genuinely interesting and different, out of the ordinary, as I've called this video, and it includes one of the many bizarre experiences that I've had out in the woods here, actually within County Antrim, a relatively close distance from where I live. So hope this is interesting. So we're going to begin just by looking at this picture. If you can see in the background there, I saw something here. It looks like a bear. It looks like a brown bear or a grizzly bear. We call it Okistad one in Cree, in our Cree language. You see, it looks like a bear pointing upwards to, or to the top corner of the screen. And when I first saw it, it made me quite surprised. The second one here, it just looked like a Wookie from the sci-fi movies. You can see it's looking down to one side. It's got its ear, its eyes. It seems to be holding something. When I saw that, that genuinely made me jump, even from quite a close distance. You know, and I thought how that could be used to construct a convincing fake as well. The third one came around the corner once and some distance from the road, and I could see this, and that alarmed me, apart from one key feature. And it does look quite convincing. It wouldn't take too much work to make that into quite convincing looking fake, particularly for a still. So if we actually zoom out, you can actually see it's actually pretty small. It's tiny, but it did, even from a small size, look like a small figure of about 2.5 feet tall, about a meter or so. So so these are three photographs that showed you could actually create some convincing fakes. So you've got to be really, really careful what you see here. You know, it wouldn't take too much here. Put a stick in its hand and maybe something in the other hand, you know, to look like it's killed something or carrying something, a few facial features on, without even having to use Photoshop or some other software system. So the next one here that I'd like us to take a look at is a genuinely interesting sighting that I saw. And bearing in mind, I'm not saying what this is. I honestly think the most likely situation is that it's people. But take a look at some of this and I'll explain the story as the photos come up. This was taken with my old cell phone. It's shattered screen. It's not in good condition. And I began to find lots of bones around. As you can see here, this is just knuckle bones from an animal like a sheep, and you can see the scapula next to my boot here. These are my old boots I was wearing, and there were quite a few littering the ground in that area. Quite a well-used path through the middle of the forest, and you can see here this fallen spruce tree that there's animals regularly walking over the top of that. So an animal big enough to be taking off the moss and the lichen from the top, and quite regularly used. It's smooth and it's quite polished, as you can see. So I began to follow this trail along. Here's some large footprints, and they just tended to be quite long and splayed out at the end here. You can see quite long and splayed out there. So you can get different kinds of boots and footwear and stuff, but it was quite big, and you can see from the size of the larger pine cones there that it's quite a big footprint. I didn't take a picture of it with my own boot, which is because I'm surprised. Then there was others. These are less clear from exactly what this is, but there's some other footprints, large footprints, but pushed down quite recently. You can see the stick and various pine cones actually sitting in the middle of some of these prints. So it's quite recent, and the prints are over the top of them. And then more began to follow more and more. Now this is quite high up. This is about a meter off the ground. So I'm starting to think, well, instead of going under this, most animals in the forest here, particularly a forest without deer, but with a lot of feral sheep in it, or potentially feral sheep, a lot of animals would just go underneath. Like, we only have foxes, we don't have bears, we don't have wolves here, more scapulae. And I find a lot of these are one of the most common bones I find in isolation. These are sheep scapulae, so it's really the shoulder blade of a sheep, and I seem to find these everywhere. And there's another one, like this one's much older, and it's a different size. It suggests to me that they've been fairly regular feeding in this area, but it's from a different animal, I would suggest, because it's not as recent as the old one. It's bone dry. And then some more bones here. They've begun to rot, but they seem relatively recent as well. This is from a section of the leg of a sheep as well. So it was I checked, and this is one of the few patches of bones that's still there today. So, and then when I was going along, I could see these figures, and this is quite a long way away. This is several hundred meters down this, almost like a parade of trees, the way it was planted. Now this whole area was blitzed by the Forest Service fairly recently. You can see how far away I was when I zoomed out. See, the figures have got slightly different positions. There's two of them sitting down the far end, and they were kind of sitting on the grass, on the sort of, here it's permanently boggy, wet ground. I wouldn't want to sit there. And here you can see the head of one of them. Seems to be one of them seems to be turning away to the right here, as you can probably see, but the one on the left, you can kind of see the head. You can see the fog as well. This is less clear, but you can see one of them's actually gone, and the other one is just there. So one of them just moved off to one side, and the other has kind of in motion as well. So it's not clear. Here's up some focuses as I've zoomed in. The reason I didn't take a film, which makes this very unconvincing to me if I were to see this from any other perspective than what I think it is. It's likely to be humans, just maybe living fairly rurally, and you do get that in Ireland. But you can see here the movement as well, that they are beginning to move away to the right. But they were strange looking, and it was like they were wearing kind of big coats or something, and just sitting on the floor, and all these bones around. It was quite creepy. Here's another close-up, and you can again see the heads there. There's two of them, but one of them's less clear than the other. It seems to be, it was the largest one on the to one side that moved away. It's such a poor photograph because of the distance and the fog and stuff. But you can see there's only one left here, and such a poor photograph. Now, from my perspective, I think the most likely explanation is that these were people, but they were very, very strange or unusual. I thought maybe people living rurally, and not rurally, but actually almost like in the wilderness. And the idea that they're feeding on sheep, moving from forest to forest, kind of freaked me out a bit. I've seen lots of other strange things, like large bare footprints, which I'll show in other videos, and particularly looking for cats, and other weird signs like marks with trees. But I've also found, not too far from here, about half a kilometer, a big bucket, or like plastic pot buried, filled with all kinds of camping stuff, or things like coffee and water tablets, and it was buried, so all kinds of supplies. And it's almost like these people going from one place to another, but they didn't feel it. It's almost like they were like gorilla-like in their movement, but that was from my perspective of it. But the most likely thing is that they were just people up to something unusual. And when I got to the spot, this is what I found. I found this bone, just a single bone, because I had to walk all the way around the side of the forest because of the fall. Look, this is actually where I took the photograph from, and you see it's just a bog, and there's lots of tree fall here. So you can see that this is quite a difficult place to take a photograph from. So I couldn't physically get through all the tree fall. It doesn't show quite how difficult it was. But if it's interesting, like and subscribe, and feel free to say what you think it could be in the comments. Be interested to know.